Hi, I'm Caleb, 37, and last Thursday I found out my mother left everything, including the family business, to my cousin. Not her kids. Not her husband. Certainly not me. My entire childhood, I'd been told. One day, this will all be yours. The funeral was on a cloudless day in late spring. Too beautiful for the mood. My mother, Eleanor Monroe, had died just 4 days earlier from what the coroner called a sudden cardiac event, and what the rest of the family whispered was stress-induced, courtesy of running Monroe and Sons for nearly 40 years. Spoiler, there were no sons. Just me. Monroe and Sons was the crown jewel of our family's legacy, a luxury furniture brand that started in my grandfather's garage and ended up furnishing private yachts and penthouses in Dubai. My mother had taken it global. She was ruthless, brilliant, and absolutely convinced I would one day take over. Your cousin doesn't have the spine for it, she used to say. And your sister would rather teach yoga to goats. So imagine my surprise when, after the tasteful post-funeral champagne reception, we were called into the conference room of Tilling and Rayburn LLP for the reading of the will. Everyone was there. My dad, who never had a business thought in his life. My sister Julia, who was already half out the door heading to Costa Rica with her latest boyfriend/chakra healer. And then there was Adam. My cousin. My mother's golden retriever of a nephew who had once been fired from the mailroom for misdelivering a $90,000 invoice to a bakery in Ohio. Let's begin, said Ms. Rayburn, one of those no-nonsense estate attorneys with glasses that made you feel guilty just looking at her. The room was quiet enough to hear the air conditioning hum. To my daughter Julia, I leave the Blue Heron property in Vermont, which she once called her spiritual recharge cabin. May it continue to bring her peace, and an occasional signal. Julia beamed. She did listen. To my husband, Marcus Monroe, I leave our shared home and all its contents, as well as a monthly stipend for as long as he lives or remarries, whichever comes first. Dad blinked. She added a prenup after marriage? Now I was sweating. And finally, Miss Rayburn said. To my son Caleb. Everyone looked at me. I felt my throat tighten. I leave the portrait of my father, Edward Monroe, which hangs in the executive conference room. That was it. A portrait. A damn oil painting. I couldn't even speak. I couldn't breathe. Adam leaned forward like he already knew what was coming. And to my nephew Adam Reynolds. Miss Rayburn continued. I leave controlling interest in Monroe and Sons, along with full executive authority and 70% of all company shares. Silence. Then my dad muttered. What the hell? Exactly. I stood. There's been a mistake. That's not possible. She trained me. I've worked there since I was 21. Ms. Rayburn didn't even blink. She made her intentions very clear, Mr. Monroe. This document is the final, legally executed version of her will. Adam tried to look surprised, but his smirk gave him away. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the first betrayal. There were 6 more coming. I didn't sleep that night. Not just because my mother had handed everything to my incompetent cousin like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs, but because something didn't add up. Eleanor Monroe didn't make mistakes. She scheduled haircuts like battle plans. She color-coded her closet. She had backups for her backups. The woman had given me 20 years of meticulous grooming to run Monroe and Sons. So why would she cut me out completely and leave the company to a guy who once asked if liquid assets meant things that could spill? By 6 a.m., I was in the office. Her office. The receptionist, new girl, couldn't be more than 23, looked up with wide eyes. Mr. Monroe, you probably want to check with Mr. Reynolds before. I waved her off. I have senior keycard access. Which I did. Still worked. Adam hadn't revoked it. Yet. The office still smelled like her perfume. That expensive cedar vanilla scent she'd worn since the 90s. I stood behind her desk, staring out the 42nd floor window at the skyline, wondering if she'd lost her mind in her final days. Or if someone had helped her lose it. I opened drawers. Everything was organized. Her daily planner still sat on the corner, thick leather-bound, filled with her precise handwriting. I flipped to the last week before her death. Monday, board call 10 a.m., design review 1 p.m., dinner with Catherine. Catherine. I hadn't heard that name in years. Catherine Leong was my mom's oldest friend. Also her fiercest rival before they called a truce and opened 2 joint retail showrooms together, one in Manhattan, one in London. I texted her before I lost my nerve. "Me, can we talk?" "About my mom." "Catherine, come by the gallery. Noon. Don't be late." The gallery was a sleek storefront in Tribeca full of minimalist furniture and terrifying prices. Catherine was waiting, dressed head to toe in black, sipping something green that looked expensive and vile. "I wondered when you'd come," she said without looking up. "Your mother knew you'd be the first to question the will." "Then why did she write it like that?" I asked. "Why would she give him the company?" "She didn't." The words hit like a slap. "What do you mean she didn't?" I leaned forward, heart racing. Catherine finally looked me dead in the eyes. "I was with her 3 nights before she died. We had dinner. She showed me her final draft. You were named sole heir to the company." My breath caught. "Then what happened?" "She died. And a new version of the will was executed. But not by her." My stomach dropped. "You think it was forged?" Catherine raised one eyebrow. "I think your cousin's sudden competence has a paper trail. And I think your mother suspected something was coming. She gave me something in case things went sideways." She reached under the counter and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name on the front, written in my mom's exacting cursive. Inside was a flash drive. No letter. No instructions. Just one line written on the back of the envelope. "If you're reading this, he's already lied." The flash drive sat in my hand like it weighed 100 pounds. Catherine didn't say anything, just pointed toward the gallery office and typed the password into her desktop for me. "Close the door when you're done," she said. "I have a feeling this is where things go nuclear." Inside the small office, I shut the door, sat down, and plugged the drive into the computer. It contained 5 folders. Each one labeled by date. Each folder full of PDFs, audio recordings, and video clips. The most recent was dated 5 days before Mom's death. I opened the oldest first. It was a scanned letter from our family attorney, notifying Mom of an attempted backdoor purchase of Monroe and Sons stock, initiated by Adam. 2 years ago. I kept clicking. The next folder showed emails. From Adam. To various contacts. Brokers, offshore firms, shell corporations. All trying to quietly buy out smaller shareholders of the company. He was building control under the radar. The third folder? Recordings. I recognized my mother's voice immediately, crisp and unflinching. "You told him I was losing capacity. That I wasn't competent. You sent emails to the board implying I was making reckless decisions." A male voice. Adam, cool, oily. "Well, you were. I mean, you were handing the company to your golden boy without asking if he was ready. Caleb is more ready than you'll ever be." Then silence. Then Mom again. "You're trying to steal this company out from under me. And you think you'll get away with it because your uncle will defend you, and my daughter's too busy perfecting Downward Dog in the rainforest. You won't be around forever, Aunt Ellie. Neither will your freedom if I press charges." That clip ended. My palms were sweating. The fourth folder was a scanned copy of Mom's real will. It named me as sole executor and inheritor of Monroe and Sons. The digital signature showed it had been notarized 1 week before she died. The one Ms. Rayburn read, the official one, was dated only 3 days before her death. Which meant someone swapped it. And they had to do it fast. Which meant they had access. Legal help. And someone who could either forge Mom's signature or trick a notary into witnessing a fake. I opened the last video file. It was security footage. From her home office. Dated 2 days before she died. I watched the screen, heart pounding, as Adam stepped into frame. He was wearing gloves. He opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a folder. Then he took her laptop. The footage had no sound, but the timestamp showed he was there for 22 minutes. He left with a manila folder, the laptop, and what looked like a flash drive. My mother had known he was planning something. She tried to stop it. And now I had proof. I exited the office to find Catherine waiting with a knowing look. "Your cousin forged the will," I said flatly. "He stole company documents. He deleted her laptop. He probably bribed someone to notarize a fake." She nodded once. I figured as much. "What do I do now?" Catherine gave a wry smile. "Now you lawyer up and go for the jugular. And the board? They'll back whoever keeps the company out of scandal." She leaned in slightly. unless you give them a scandal too big to ignore. I took the flash drive, tucked it in my pocket, and walked out into the bright Manhattan sunshine with one singular thought thundering through my head. He thought I'd roll over. He has no idea what I'm about to do. By Monday morning, the war had officially begun. I hired Gloria Pennington, a litigation shark who wore all white suits and had once made an oil executive cry on the witness stand. When I showed her the flash drive, she went silent for a full minute. Then she looked up and said, "Oh, we're going to burn him to the ground." Her words. Not mine. We filed a petition in probate court to challenge the will. Attached were the digital forensics reports, handwriting analysis, the notarization timestamp anomalies, and the piece de resistance, the video of Adam, caught like a raccoon raiding a jewelry drawer. Adam's legal team responded within 48 hours. Their claim? The video was fake. Digitally altered. Deepfake was their new favorite word. They leaned hard into the idea that grief had made me unstable and desperate. But then Gloria dropped our first bombshell. The notary on Adam's version of the will had already admitted, under deposition, that she'd never seen my mother sign the document. Adam had brought it to her pre-signed and told her Eleanor was too sick to leave bed. Gloria smiled. That's perjury, by the way. The board of Monroe and Sons convened an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited. But I showed up anyway. I walked into that room wearing the same navy suit I wore to my mother's funeral, like armor. 9 board members, all pale and tight-lipped, turned to look at me. "Gentlemen. Ladies," I said. "You've all seen the headlines. You've all read the documents. So let's not pretend this is business as usual." The chairman, Edward Lathrop, family friend, 83 years old, looked like a colonial ghost, cleared his throat. "Caleb, this is not a forum." "Oh, it absolutely is," I said, pulling a folder from my briefcase. "Here are the full forensic audit findings. The fraud was internal. The documents were forged. And the man you're letting run this company used his position to gain access to private files, steal a laptop, and fake a will." Someone near the end of the table whispered, "Jesus." I met Edward's eyes. "My mother spent 40 years building this company. She trusted me to carry it forward. You have a choice: support the legal heir, or double down on a fraud and go down with him." There was a long silence. Then Edward looked at the rest of the board and said, "I think we need to deliberate." By the time I stepped back outside, my phone was blowing up. Articles were spreading. "Monroe family implosion" was the headline on half a dozen finance blogs. My sister called from Costa Rica. "Caleb, what the hell is going on? Adam forged the will. I have proof." There was a pause. Then, in a voice softer than I'd heard in years, she said, "Mom would be proud of you." "Yeah," I whispered, throat tight. "I hope so." Later that night, Gloria texted me one line. "He's offering a settlement. Want to hear it?" I didn't hesitate. "Tell him to go screw himself. We're going to court." Adam was unraveling. Publicly, he still wore the confident smile of a man who'd inherited a business empire. But behind closed doors, we had emails, phone calls, and one extremely incriminating voicemail where he said, "If he drags this to court, we're screwed." Yes. Screwed indeed, cousin. Gloria filed a subpoena for all security footage from the Monroe headquarters from the month leading up to Mom's death. What we got back was illuminating. One clip showed Adam in the executive boardroom late at night, using Mom's security credentials to access her files. Another showed him arguing with one of the junior partners from our legal firm, someone who mysteriously left the company 3 days before the will was filed. Suspicious much? Meanwhile, the press was salivating. "Corporate dynasty in free fall," one outlet called it. "Furniture empire faces fraud allegations, nephew accused of a forgery," screamed another. I started getting calls from former clients, vendors, even old employees who wanted to testify, people who'd worked under Adam in the months after my mother's death and described his leadership style as a mix of drunk pirate and angry squirrel. One in turn emailed Gloria directly and attached a PDF titled, "All the bullshasters I saw," with timestamps. It included Adam telling the head of marketing to make the brand sexier, like cigars and leather porn. Him proposing a line of Monroe-branded beanbags for Gen Z appeal. A voice recording where he yells, "I don't care what Eleanor wanted. She's dead, I'm the boss now." We included that one in our court filing. Because poetic justice is real and often comes with audio clarity. But it wasn't just the case that was heating up. So was the board. 2 weeks after I'd barged into their meeting, Edward Lathrop called me directly. The board had voted to place Adam on temporary administrative leave pending the court's outcome. Translation: we don't want to be near this bomb when it explodes. But the best moment came during pre-trial depositions. Adam sat across from me in a conference room filled with lawyers and stenographers. Gloria leaned forward with the kind of smile wolves probably have just before they sink their teeth in. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, "were you aware that Eleanor Monroe's laptop was removed from her home office the night of February 14th? Adam shifted. I didn't know that at the time." Gloria slid a printed screenshot across the table. "This is your Uber receipt. It shows you arriving at her address at 11:17 p.m. and leaving at 12:06 a.m. Does that refresh your memory?" He swallowed hard. But Gloria didn't stop. "And were you aware that Mrs. Monroe had already signed a notarized will naming her son as sole heir 1 week prior?" Adam turned bright red. "She changed her mind." "Interesting. Did she change her mind before or after you removed her laptop, rewrote her will, and forged her signature?" His lawyer objected. "But the damage was done." Adam wouldn't look at me. And that's when I knew we weren't just winning. We were destroying him. The court date was set for July 11th. By then, the headlines weren't just buzzing, they were screaming. Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, even Forbes had picked up the story. Monroe and Son stock had dipped 18% in a month. The board was in full-blown damage control mode. Adam had gone from acting CEO to silent pariah in record time. But here's what really did him in: the employees. Turns out, when you treat people like disposable tools, they remember. And they talk. A lot. Gloria and her team collected over 30 sworn statements from former interns, assistants, project leads, and one particularly angry executive assistant who gave us a goldmine of internal emails. One included Adam bragging that he'd, quote, rewritten history before breakfast. Not a great look, considering we were accusing him of forging a legal document. 3 days before trial, Adam's lawyer made one final attempt to settle. They offered me 40% of the company, a public apology, and a very thinly veiled NDA. I said no. Gloria grinned so wide I thought her face might crack. "This will make my year," she said, sipping her iced coffee like it was champagne. Trial began in a packed courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 60s with a sharp bob and sharper eyes. The type who doesn't tolerate nonsense, cell phones, or, as Adam quickly discovered, arrogance. The moment Gloria began her opening statement, the room shifted. She didn't just lay out the facts, she painted a picture. My mother's legacy. The grooming, the training, the decades of dedication I'd given. Then the betrayal. The laptop. The altered documents. The notary's recantation. The security footage. The forged will. One fact at a time, like hammer blows. And then she played the audio. The clip where Adam said, "You won't be around forever, Aunt Ellie." The judge's jaw twitched. That was the moment. You could feel it. The room turned. Even Adam's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Adam took the stand on the third day. It was glorious. He fidgeted. Sweated. Misspoke. Contradicted earlier depositions. Claimed the will Mom showed Catherine was a draft, even though the file metadata showed it had been finalized and encrypted 2 days later. Then came the final blow, forensic analysis from the handwriting expert. She was an older woman named Dr. Maren Klein, with gray curls and reading glasses on a chain. When asked if the signature on Adam's version of the will matched my mother's handwriting, she didn't even hesitate. It was traced. Pearly. The gallery gasped. Like we were in a courtroom drama and not an actual lawsuit over forged estate documents. Adam tried to object from the witness box. The judge shut him down with a look that could curdle milk. Gloria leaned over to me. We could rest now and win. We didn't. Instead, she called Catherine to the stand. Then Julia, who had flown in from Costa Rica like an avenging angel with tan lines and a mission. She testified about Adam's creepy comments during the funeral, how he'd boasted that Caleb won't know what hit him. Then she looked directly at Adam from the witness stand and said, "You were always a little worm. Now the whole world knows it." The courtroom laughed. Even the judge coughed into her hand. When the judge finally gave her verdict, It was everything I'd hoped for, and more. The forged will was invalidated. The original, legally binding document that named me sole heir and controlling stakeholder of Monroe and Sons was reinstated. Adam was referred for criminal investigation on charges of fraud, forgery, and perjury. The judge even included a personal note in the ruling about the chilling nature of the calculated deception, and the concerning willingness to manipulate a grieving family for personal gain. He didn't even look up as the decision was read. Afterward, I walked out of that courthouse with Gloria at my side, reporters shouting questions I didn't answer. The board called an emergency session that night. I walked into the Monroe and Sons building, keycard in hand, head held high. Edward Lathrop stood when I entered. "Welcome home, Mr. Monroe," he said. I took my seat at the head of the table, looked around at the executives, many of whom had once doubted me, and said clearly, "Let's talk about the future." Because now, it finally belonged to me. 1 year later, I stood in the executive boardroom of Monroe and Sons, the same one where I used to shadow my mother as a terrified 22-year-old, now CEO and majority shareholder of the company she'd built. Behind me hung the oil portrait of my grandfather, Edward Monroe. The only other thing Mom ever left me in that first fake will. I used to hate looking at it. Now I understood what it meant. Legacy isn't what you're handed. It's what you fight for. Adam was indicted 6 weeks after the trial ended. The grand jury didn't take long. Wire fraud, forgery, unlawful access to secured networks, witness intimidation. His bail hearing alone was an embarrassment. His lawyer argued that Adam posed no flight risk, and then promptly lost him for 3 days when he didn't show up to the court-ordered check-in. He was found at a luxury spa in Sedona, getting recentered. The judge revoked his bail. By summer, he'd taken a plea deal. 2 years, suspended after 1 served, plus a hefty fine and a lifetime ban from serving as officer or director of any company governed under SEC regulations. He moved to Miami. Started a podcast about resilience. Called himself a whistleblower. I haven't listened. I never will. Julia came back from Costa Rica, permanently. She opened a boutique yoga studio on the Upper East Side and started calling me weekly. We're not best friends, but we're rebuilding something. For the first time in our adult lives, we talk without someone triangulating our conversations. It's weird. It's good. Even Dad, who once hid behind business books and bourbon and never defended me against the constant erosion of Adam's whisper campaigns, eventually reached out. He came to one of our new product launches last October and pulled me aside after the speeches. "She would have been proud," he said, voice thick. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. It wasn't everything. But it was something. And the company? I didn't burn it all down. I restructured. Leaner teams, smarter investments, and a rebranding campaign that honored our history without being chained to it. Monroe and Sons became Monroe Design Group. I kept the signature line, my mother's personal collection, intact. Her initials, E&M, are still etched into the brass tags on every custom piece. Because no matter how much they tried to erase her intentions, her presence runs through every grain of wood, every blueprint, every stitch. Catherine joined the board last fall. Her first action? A unanimous vote to create the Eleanor Monroe Foundation, funding scholarships for young designers from underserved communities. She texted me afterward. "Told you. We're just getting started." The house? I moved back into my mom's brownstone. Renovated the kitchen. Kept her teacup collection. Sometimes, when I get home late after a long day, I make a cup of chamomile and sit in her reading chair. There's a peace there now that I never felt when she was alive, too busy carrying the weight of the business and protecting me in ways I only now understand. One night I found her old planner. Tucked into the back, in faded ink, was a list titled, "For Caleb someday. Keys to the business. A seat at the table. Something no one can take. Truth." She gave me all 4. The press still loves a redemption arc. They call me the quiet heir, the comeback CEO, the guy who sued his cousin and won a company. I don't care about any of that. I care about building something better. Cleaner. Smarter. Honest. I care about honoring my mother's legacy not just with headlines, but with choices. With dignity. With the kind of leadership that doesn't require fraud or whispers in the dark. Every morning, I walk past that oil portrait of my grandfather, hang my coat in the same place Mom used to, and sit at the head of the table she once called her battlefield. But this time, the war is over. And I won. Not just the company. Not just the court case. I won back my story. And I'll never let anyone rewrite it again.